This is the live stream Skillshare training workshop at the Media Action Research Group Conference here in Orillia. All right, go ahead.
And yeah, I'm interested in learning more about live stream, and I've seen it emerge more on Facebook, as you were saying, especially with like Democracy Spring and whatnot. It's really interesting and engaging, and I guess I'm interested in learning like specific techniques to make it like more, I don't know, like exciting and like for people to watch online. But yeah.
Right, okay, cool. Nice to meet you, Samantha.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sammy. I actually work here through the Students' Union, but I also work through the Canadian Federation of Students, so do a lot of activism work in that realm. So came here to get a new intake and really understand how this can benefit my social justice work and what I do on the ground with students as well, and starting to educate them and bringing it forward as they go on into their lives of activism outside of just the student movement.
Wonderful.
My name's Sandra. I also work here. I'm part of the Media Action Research Group, and I'm more a critical analysis person, so I'm here to learn some skills in live streaming. I know really not very much about it at all.
Wonderful. And yes.
My name is Laith Maruf, and I'm here to learn more about how you guys did it down south and be in solidarity. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you. And it's great to have you. And I'll be calling. I mean, I just, one thing I want to say about this is that, like with all of these skills, it's an ongoing collaboration and a sort of thing where we all contribute the knowledge that we have. So I have some experiences which I'll share with you in a moment. But I'm not into a dynamic where like I'm the person up here, the expert hitting you with all the knowledge. It's like we build knowledge together always, you know. So my experience is that in August 2014, was taught to live stream while being in Ferguson. I went to Ferguson, Missouri in the wake of, shortly after the Michael Brown incident, and I wasn't sure really what I was doing there other than I needed to be there and wanted to participate. And a live streamer whose name is Rebs II, whose name is John Ziegler actually, but he goes by Rebs II, and he's out there with his name. I'll pull him up eventually on Twitter. But Rebs II basically taught me how to live stream and was like, this is going to be valuable to you to know how to do this because you're going to be able to use it in your community. And I was skeptical of that, but that proved to be very true because after I returned to where I lived in South Carolina, I found that there were many things I was able to live stream, and it was really good to have the knowledge that he showed me. Now, it took me also time to get better at it. I've learned through a lot of mistakes, so there is a trial and error and experimental component to it. And so after that, like I said, in South Carolina, we had the Walter Scott incident there. There was protests related to that where he was shot in the back. I don't know if y'all remember that, but he was shot in the back by a police officer named Thomas Slager, or Michael Slager, who was just indicted. So, that's kind of a good thing. And then a good step. And then Charleston shootings happened in South Carolina, and there was a lot of things related to that to be filmed and to participate in. And then there was a Confederate flag that happened, being to protest for the Confederate flag to be taken down. And the flag was taken down, and there was also a KKK rally. And there's been several after that, but one in particular at the State House, which was really like, I was glad I was there to catch that, and a lot of people watched that stream. Also, in November of 2014, I went to, in Ferguson, there was some they called them Black Friday mall shutdown. So on Black Friday of November 2014, a small group of which I was kind of embedded in planned to shut down about 5 to 6 malls over the course of that Friday and Saturday. And they actually did shut down the malls. Like I'm talking about, like when we left those malls, there was nobody in there. The mall was closed. All the gates were down, which was kind of a satisfying action on Black Friday afternoon, right? Such an orgy of consumption. And it was interesting to capture that. And I think important because there was, even still, the documentation of that wasn't really a lot, right? So it's nice to have the archive of that. So I share those things to say that I think live streaming is really important, because you kind of think, well, in this age, everybody has cameras, everybody is recording everything. What use does it make? You'll be amazed, like when you have the ability to do this and you know how to do it, how things in your community that are happening, it'll be valuable for you to do that. And sometimes people will call on you to do it. They'll say, can you please stream this? Both people who are not able to make the event, they'll ask you, are you going to be streaming? And also people who are planning the events. So when I was in New York, I was also streaming some of the Eric Garner protests there. I mean, I've participated in, probably 30 or 40 different actions since 2014, and then even more as a participant, because one thing you learn, and I'm going to talk about, is watching live streams is an active act that is a very participatory act. People who are watching the live stream play an important role, and as live streamers, you should treat them as such. So it's not like they're it's not the traditional thing where like you're the journalist and they're passive watching. They're active participants. You have to respond to them. You have to learn how to interact with them, what they're saying in the chat stream. And they can help you out a lot of times. Sometimes they can help you to navigate. In Ferguson, they played a huge role in telling people where things were. You had people in the chat participation who were monitoring police radios, and then they would interject that information into the chat until they would kind of tell you, like, okay, this is what I just heard on the satellite. And they would just give you all kinds of valuable information. Here, like they also, unlike, when you're live streaming, you're kind of focused on your stream, right? But someone who's at home can have up multiple streams of people in that area. So oftentimes people in the chat, once they get to know you, they will there's people who just do this, and they're like watching this streamer, so they can tell you where this person is streaming here. They can go into other streams, like they can go into another stream, and as that stream is shutting down, they'll tell the people, Chenjerai is streaming, go move over to his stream if you want to continue to watch at this location. So when you're trying to build audiences, which is one of the big challenges that we face as streamers, is how do you get people to watch your stream? The cultivation of that community around your stream is huge. And so and there's also, there's trolls. One other thing I'll just say while I'm on this subject is that people who are watching the stream, you can make them moderators. And when you have trusted, viewers or community members, that's one of the key ways that you deal with that, because particularly when you're doing stuff like that's really controversial, I mean, you just will get trolls who will come in and just take over the stream. And that was something I did wrong. I didn't take that seriously. I was like, well, I'll just ignore them and tell my viewers to ignore them. But then you get to a point where if you have 2,000 viewers or 3,000 viewers and you have 100 trolls, it can mess up the chat. And then the people who are watching really hate that, because they want to have a conversation that's not filled with all kind of racial and misogynist epithets, homophobic, and you know what I mean? So for all those reasons, dealing with that community is really important. And I participated in that kind of work as well. And you can assign someone, you can say, okay, I'm sorry, remind me of your name again? Sammy. So if I see Sammy's in my chat, she's like, I'm here, I'm watching. She might say, well, you want me to mod? And I'll say, okay, yes, cool. I can activate her as the moderator, and then she could moderate, and then that's great. I don't have to worry about that now. You know what I mean? Hopefully she won't be too harsh and just anybody who says a right-wing thing, she's like, nope, delete it. We still want critical dialogue, right? Okay. So does everybody have Ustream downloaded? Are we still any problems with that? Okay. Have you signed in and created your own account? Right. Yes. You can. Yes, you can. All right. So let's start out. So, okay. So first, before I go any further, let me I'm going to show you a brief 1-minute snippet of some of my horrible live streaming footage from various things. This was part of a video that I had to make. I got a small grant at Clemson to be what's called a creativity professor, which I had room to. I just translated that as a social justice professor. But I'll show you just some little footage of some things here, and that was the mall protests That was the KKK rally, which people showed up to. Okay, this is getting on to other things. All right, so again, you know, one thing I'll say about the decision to live stream is I feel like sometimes when I'm going to do it, I'm never 100% sure whether I'm going to do it, whether it's going to make a difference. So it's better to prepare and be ready to do it if you want to do it. Now, one other thing, okay, let me say this too, to make a distinction, because one of the great things is we have Leith here, who was, you know, was it? I want to get your title right. Executive Director for CUTV. So that was I consider that an advanced format that we learned about earlier today, in which he was using live streaming as a member of, as a part of community media. And Leith brought a really important distinction out. He said, you know, oftentimes when you see what I'm teaching you today, what I'm teaching you really is like citizen journalism. Like you as a citizen, you're going to be able to do journalism and with using your phone, or, you know, I'm teaching you how to use your phone. There's other ways to do it. But I think that that's not the only way that live streaming can be used. Live streaming can also be used as part of community journalism and community media, which is much more, which is institutionalized and, you know, not as precarious, not just you as an individual out here with no kind of codes and no kind of real funding and no protection really, right? There's another way to do it where, and not really like where you're just a node traveling around, because as you can see, I traveled around to many different locations, but there's also, it's important maybe to think about having community media that is based in a location, so that when I leave St. Louis, like what are the people going to do there? If I'm, as Rebel Z said, if I was one of the few people of color journalists there, how do you create a situation in which the people there have an ongoing situation where they can have independent media, right? Like this citizen journalism isn't necessarily the solution to that. So I want to distinguish this and say, while I think it's valuable, there's also that kind of possibility, and I hope that Leith will participate as we talk about what the codes are, because in a way, since this form is relatively new, we're still working out what the professional and vocational codes are of this. Like how do you operate, how do you adapt it to different situations? So please feel free to weigh in on that. Sandra, feel free to raise critical questions about what this means, since we just downloaded a corporate platform, you know, and we're having to, like, you know, these things are not pure. That raises all kinds of questions. So okay, I wanted to put out those things out there. All right, getting down to the skills. So before we even get to the software, let's talk about these devices. Do me a favor, everybody hold your phone up in your hand like this, as though you're live streaming, right? So you'll be probably looking at the screen. Hold the screen facing you, right? Hold your arm up like this. Go ahead, nice and high. Okay. So just keep it up while I'm talking. So one of the things you'll notice is that, like, if you're holding your arm like this up, you know what I'm saying, for a while, eventually your arm's gonna get tired. You know what I mean? So, you know, and that's a real problem, because one of the things that's different about live streaming, I want you to feel this just for a little bit, you know, one of the things about live streaming is that that's different than I think other ways of capturing media, is that you are expected to kind of hold this camera up for maybe the advice I got from other streamers. Like sometimes I would go up and stream for like 5-10 minutes, and then I would be like, oh no, I got a tweet. And then I would get off. Then I'll go on Facebook and I'll take a picture. I'm like, oh, that would make an awesome picture. And then people were like, no, people from the live stream community quickly converged on me and were like, no, dude, if you're not going up for 45 minutes, don't go up, right? So you're going to have to be up for a while. And so you want to start to think about ways that you're going to deal with that physical endurance. Okay, you can put it down now. You know, build muscles in your arm. These are some tools that I purchased to help with that. I mean, I guess people can use selfie sticks. Leith, you might more advanced tools, but eventually I just got like this little thing, which I got from like a camera store, and it's like, and this is useful because it's also a tripod. So if I need to sit up and do a stationary live stream, like I want to live stream a conference or whatever, I can just sit it here. It makes a difference. You know what I'm saying? It also One funny thing that I'll show you that I learned was that, like, well, we'll just imagine that I have this in here, but like, I used to actually, when I was like, okay, so imagine like that I'm like filming a march, right? And so I'm marching, and then I want to get a head-on view of the march, right? I would sit there and like go like this with the camera, and then be like walking backwards, which then would cause me to stumble and things like that. And then someone eventually said, Chenjerai, you know, you could just kind of do that. So this makes that easier too. I'm just like still marching with them and getting those views. So those are just basic things because I lack basic journalist skills. So I think, you know, I would recommend investing in something like this. This whole setup cost me maybe $25, $30 based on after my negotiation with the people. So that's one thing. A second thing I want to say before we get into it is, when you're at a protest or a social movement type of thing, you have to make a decision about whether you're going to live stream, whether that's the best way to document this. It's a real decision, because once you live stream, it's a commitment to time, because you're expected to be up for like 45 minutes. People aren't going to, if people start to see your people who watch your stream, if they realize you're only going up for like 5 minutes, a couple minutes, eventually you're not going to build an audience. They'll be like, her streams are garbage, whatever, you know. They'll just turn it off. So what you want to do is, now you got to decide, okay, I'm going to go up and I'm going to stay up for like 45 minutes. So what does that mean? That means I'm not going to be able to take pictures while I do that. I'm not going to be able to tweet if you're somebody who tweets at events. I'm not going to be able to really answer emails or text people, really, right? I'm not going to be able to talk on the phone, right? I mean, you know, that's a little, you know, I don't know if we're all used to doing that, but for me, I have to think about whether I'm ready to do that and kind of prepare for that. And then you have to decide, and sometimes in certain movement moments, it might be better, actually. There's times when you also have to look at your bandwidth. What's the bandwidth like where you're at? That's the thing to think about. Sometimes I realize like the bandwidth isn't going to really work for streaming. So this might be better if I'm going in and out of choppy bandwidth as we're marching, or it looks like I'm in a place that's not going to have that. Maybe it might be better for me just to take some pictures, take some high quality video and upload it later as a way to document things, you know. So that's because, and you know, and one advantage to that too is, like, with the camera, I mean, especially with these phone cameras now, sometimes you can get really good I mean, you can make a very high quality video of a video thing that you can just send out like that. So typically, if I'm looking around and I'm like, I know I'm going to be in this march for at least an hour, I'm going to go through the whole thing, or at this protest for you know, a long time. I know that I have good bandwidth. I know that I got, you know, phone battery, which, that's the other thing we got to talk about is battery. But then I know that I'm able to like take care of my having to go to the bathroom, eat, some, you know, and all those things, and I don't need, and I can create a situation in which no one is going to be able to reach me for an hour or more. Then you're ready to stream. All right, sound good? Okay. Yes, please. Yeah. That's a great question. Just to repeat the question, Sandra asked if you know, is it better to have someone with you to help you with the things that you have to do? I would say ideally it is. That's better, but not always necessary. Many times I've just planned to do it. I'm going on my own, and I just explain to people. There's settings that works differently on each phone that are like do not disturb, and you can just set those. Those are crucial, actually. I think really helpful. And then, you know, yeah. I mean, oftentimes, my wife and I both stream, so sometimes I would play kind of like wing person for her to help her kind of, you know, handle her thing, or she would help me with that. So it helps. Yeah, it helps. But I think there's many times I've streamed just by myself. You know what I'm saying? Where it gets tricky is when people know you and they start coming up to you and talking to you while you're streaming. But we'll get into that in a moment. All right. I want to keep moving, so I'll come back to talk about battery power. But battery power is an issue. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right. So you've decided to stream, right? He's like, okay, I'm going to stream. What do I do? Well, first thing you're going to do is, let's say you're going to go into your Ustream app. Everybody go into your Ustream app. All right. And then there's a little area that says go live. You see that? Click go live, but do not hit the red button yet. All right, let me see. Everybody turn your phone around so I can see that you're in the go live. Let me see. Bong, bong. You got it? You're there. Okay. Okay, hold on. You got to give it permission to do your camera. Allow, yeah. All right. Now, the next thing you need to do, now mind you, imagine yourself, what kind of all right, Nikki and Samantha, what kind of protest you're going to be at? Black Lives Matter? Okay, what kind of protest, where you going to be at? Okay, out of Wapscap, okay. Where are you going to be? You're with her at that one? Where you at, man? Palestine. Okay, right. So you're there. So what you gotta do is you gotta think in about 6 or 7 characters. How can I quickly type a title for this stream? But before you start typing it, keep in mind this is also going to be what people will see on Twitter. So it's going to draw them in. So if you type in boring middle-aged black guy talks about live streaming, no one's going to kind of really click that, right? But whereas if you type, it's going down now, I don't know what you call it, you type, Palestine, justice for Palestine, shutdown. I mean, usually you want to think of an action word. It's not even it's like a combination of the issue and what's happening that, is going to be the title for this stream. So what are you going to call your stream? Mall shutdown? Where? Where though? Okay, I think I'm checking. You think we clicking that? Police headquarters shut down, and you might have to think about it. So see if you can fit it in there because there's a character limit. Go ahead, try it just real quick. I'm typing mine. I'm calling mine media action. Often, what you should know is that often at these actions, they will have selected a hashtag name for the action itself. If you can, use that. You know what I mean? That's because then there's already going to be traffic related to that, right? Media action now. Yeah. All right. You got yours? You got your name? What you call yours? Man?
I didn't write it down.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
you get it. I understand. Okay. Now I tried to pull mine up here because we're going to use mine as a way to go here. In a moment. So, all right, let me just start here. Okay, I am now live. So you all are live. Tell you what, for the time being, don't go live on your screen. Close it. We'll come back to you. All right? I'll show you this. All right. What we're going to do is everyone stand up, please. We have to decide what kind of protest we're going to put on. I'm trying to see if I can find my thing. All right, so come out here because we're going to be protesters. coffee. I'm trying. Okay, cool. So you get different perspectives. Now, one thing you obviously want to do. Okay, you can stop on it. One thing you want to do when you listen to this is you want to try to find a way to. You have to make a choice about what you cover. I don't know how this would be an interesting thing to get Lee's input on. I mean, to me, when I'm doing bad coverage, when I first go up, one of the first things I'm trying to do is orient people as to where we're at and what's going on, right? So my first thing is like I'm trying to tell you, okay, here's one location, here's where we are. You know, if I can give them some quick background context, I'm letting them know. Oh, sorry. I'm also going to thank them for watching. That's one of the first things I do. I'm all about like validating the viewers because it's one of the ways I was able to get a lot of viewers. So I'm like validating viewers. You know, hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for, really, because they're participating. They don't have to sit there and watch your thing. You know, I mean, they could quickly go away. And I also sometimes ask them explicitly, please share the stream. You know, please share the stream. If you notice, everybody can see this here. Here, can someone? Yeah, okay. If you click chat, we see the chat thing pop up. You know what I'm saying? And you would see on the screen the people who are watching. You know what I'm saying? Also, but they're not.
Show your viewers.
Oh, well, hold on a minute. See, I just did what you shouldn't do. I went out of the stream. But no worries. Back in. You will also see down here in the corner, you'll see we have 0 viewers now, but you'll see the viewers will come up there. You'll see the numbers climb of viewers and everything. So there's also, if you notice, a button called the share button, right? So if you click share, it gives you this text, right? And you can send that out on Twitter, right? Now you can also edit. I always edit that. You know what I'm saying, and say, what I want to say. But then keep in mind the text is limited. Right now I'm at the. How do I pronounce it again? I'm sorry. Atawapiskat. So and so. Boom, boom, boom. Watch it and explain what's going on. Sometimes I send out updates as far as what's happening through that mechanism. So and then you hit the. You hit the back button, and you're back. You're there. So that's one thing. So initially my thing is to I usually get in, I'm telling people, thank you for watching, here's where we're at, here's what's going on, and then I'm clicking share a couple times to get the message out there because I need to build it in. Frequently, I will have started to tweet that I'm going to be streaming up to an hour, 2 hours before, depending on how sure I am. Sometimes you're not sure. Sometimes you hear that the thing is going down and you're on the way, right? And other times you know in advance you're going to. But this also gets tricky because some actions you can't let people know. Right, so this is part of the trickiness of getting an audience. Why you have to think about other ways to have an infrastructure to quickly build audience for the stream. Not to convert you into a mic holder. Sorry. All right. Yeah. So all right, and then you have to. Now we're in the March, and you have to make decisions about what else you're going to do. When I'm doing a bad job, it's just me talking, endlessly blabbering on. Yeah. So we're here. So and so is happening. Blah blah blah. I think. For me, my thing to try to do is to try to get some shots and give people a sense of the action and what's going on, and then immediately I'm trying to just interview as many people as I can to ask them why they're here. That's kind of how I approach it. And for me to shut up and then say, why are you here? And to try to find people who are not necessarily not going up to the person who's in the leadership of it, the typical people that are going to be interviewed, but like somebody who's a sort of person who might typically be marginalized or who's just there, and to get their views and listen to them, and really try to, and since we're here now for an hour, to try to break out of the typical, one thing that you'll find happens, I don't know if you found this happen, but we watch so much news that there's certain news codes that are built into us. So I find myself sometimes saying things out of my mouth that I'm like, this is the opposite of why I'm doing journalism. I'm like, we're here with so-and-so in the middle of the action, and let's talk to Nick. What's going on, Nick? And then he's saying, and I'm like, but one thing I learned from Rep Z was, I'm not in a rush now. I can talk to Nick for a while. That's my Nicky for a while, and really get his perspective, ask him more in-depth questions. There's no need for me to rush to the next person all of a sudden. But if you're just by default and knee-jerk because we're so used to seeing that, you might do that. You might be like, okay, cool, thanks. Then you go on to the next person. So that's my approach to that. What do you think, Leif?
I think it's obviously you have much more time, and you do want to be in-depth, and you do want to hear the voices of as big a diversity as possible. And again, not to replicate the things that the mainstream are doing. So the mainstream, as you said, we're going to interview, let's say, the leaders of the demonstration or the movement. There's no need for you to repeat that. The audience is going to hear it somewhere else. So you go and actually definitely give a human face and a movement face to your interviews. One thing that I would, it is important to break the mold of the what we're conditioned to accept as how media is delivered, but there is still a science to, so, and you do have to follow some things.
Right.
It doesn't mean the editorial positions or this modern 24-hour
Objective, two-sided of the story. all
yeah,
that
no,
foolishness.
no. Or like the snap chat kind of
Yes.
media that we already have before Snapchat started in the last 10 years. This is the soundbite media.
Soundbite, yes.
Exactly. So it's important for community media specifically, or independent media and journalists, citizen journalists and so on, to give context especially to the story. And that can only happen through long form. And that's where actually the live stream shines.
And that's what I loved. That's what I loved about the CUTV student am I saying that right? I always get CKUT. Yeah, CUTV, the student strike in Quebec, was the in-depth. So you guys were always doing an analysis. So we're walking down the street here, not much is going on, we're on our way to so-and-so, and the reason we're here, and what happened yesterday, and this is the context, and a critique. You would go on these rants about capitalism, and like why, like the neoliberal logic of the university, and so it really gave a much better understanding than just like, we're in the streets, and let's go where the smoke bombs are, right? Like, which is what mainstream journalism wants us to look at, and not to think about those things. So I really, even if you're just walking and doing nothing, sometimes throwing in this kind of analysis and context is super helpful until you come across the next person and then get their perspective. So I liked that with you guys. I want to give this back to you.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, here, I'll take, so, I mean, I was going to say, so I think the giving of context is important. It's important to give it every so often because as your viewers grow, there's new people coming in who haven't heard it. So that's kind of like one of those journalistic codes things that they do. They say, reminding people where we are. Like that becomes a repetitive cycle for me. After every so often, it's like, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Also, name check calling the people who are actually on the stream as they come in. Hey, how are you? Thanks for where are you? Sometimes I'll do things to specifically engage them. Where are you checking in from? Okay, if you're from Australia, great, cool, so and so. And people are, they'll come in and they have the comments. One thing I will say.
Wait, so you do that. So they type and it pops up that so and so.
Yeah, I wish someone was. Yeah, nobody's on now. Yeah,
And
but
then
yeah.
you greet them verbally, and you just say
Greeting them verbally,
so-and-so
yes.
Just popped up on my screen.
Yes.
You're from Australia. Why don't you tell me like?
Yeah, not yeah. It's not. It's well. It's kind of out. It's an abbreviated dialogue because you're negotiating a lot of things.
Right.
But it's definitely a like. Tell me where you're coming in from.
Okay.
And then you say, oh, okay, you're coming. You kind of just pick and choose what you can respond to. Sometimes people will ask you a specific question. When people ask good questions, I do try to ask those. Sometimes as you're interviewing someone, people will ask you a question to ask the person. I try to do that. I try to answer those where they're good. Again, incorporating it in a way that seems kind of like professional, not just totally chaotic. Like I'm just, but like yeah, so one of our viewers wants to know this, bang, and again, that's important. I think for creating that community. When it comes to the context, two notes I would say is that one, yes, you can offer the context, but one thing I would say is when it comes to editorializing, you have to make choices sometimes about how much of your own, take on it you want. Now, and what I'm trying to say is even if you're deeply invested in like this particular action from a social justice standpoint, there's sometimes ways where like falling back on that can be more persuasive. There's times when I'm not going to add it in, like, boom, this is, when we see so-and-so, because there's times when, I'll give you an example of that. I was at the, I kind of want us to do one more thing in a minute. Well, let me just answer this question and then we'll keep it moving. But there was a big, the Revolutionary Communist Party held a big, massive 10,000 person march in New York where they had like all these like 40 or 50 families who were victims of police violence together. They brought them all together in New York, and they marched through Manhattan, and this is where like Quentin Tarantino and everybody was there. He said all kind of crazy stuff against the cops. Now, in that case, you have all these families who have experienced this, and some of them are able to get on stage, some of them are just walking, right? In that case, for me, it's like the most persuasive thing is to put the camera on those mothers and be like, talk, you know, because I'm imagining sometimes a partially skeptical audience, you know, and so then it's like I'm not going to overburden it with my deep contextual analysis of the state and incarceration and criminal justice, but like in that case, it's like, boom, I'm going to get as many of those stories because it just does it. Now, other times, that's not necessarily the case. People don't have the context, so it's always that dance. And I think as scholars, we have to sometimes be sensitive to that, right? Like, because there's a tendency for me to always want to go deeper with that. But I think often, yeah, to give people that, and what's funny is what's often talked about and discussed as opinion is really just context, right? To talk about these larger things. And I think there's almost like a rule in journalism, like you can't bring in a concept to help people as an analytic frame, like neoliberalism or something like that, right? So those kind of things. One other thing I want to say in relation to context is that oftentimes your viewers can help with context sometimes too. But keep in mind, it's a marketplace of ideas. But they will sometimes do things like put in links, you know. So, for example, in Charleston, I had not and still have not committed the names of all the people who died to memory. But when we were doing those things in front of the church, you know, you could ask people, you know, could we get those names into the chat? And then somebody will just put it in the chat so everybody can see the names and get information like that in. So you can use them to offer that context as well, which is important. Now, let's talk about the issue, and we're going to do one last more annoying march around. But like, you had to make decisions about who to put on camera. Now, this is part of what you were talking about and who not to. I'm going to tell you how I generally approach this, and this is also the case with radio. But Leith had some very good other things to think about. I generally will do this. Like, we're marching, let's walk, right? I'm going to let you see me with the camera, right? And then I'm going to like, so, Sam, you see me with the camera, right? And I'm kind of like looking at you. And then I'm going to very slowly turn around and I'm just going to put you on camera. This is how I do it. I'm not going to ask you, would you like to be on camera? This is how I typically do it, but there's some downsides to this. Now, that's because oftentimes if you ask people, you know, it's like, and even radio, I was taught literally by like some of the best public radio journalists to like make eye contact with the person, ask them a direct question. So what do you think about this? And you just find people just answer. The opposite of what we learn as scholars with IRB, right? Consent form, please. We don't pull out a consent form. No, it's like, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to do it in a way where if you not want to be on camera, you can kind of say no, and then I'm like, no, okay. So, all right, you're going to now get consent and interview us as we march around and you're going to interview
Get consent or your kind of consent?
my kind of consent, and then you're going to interview at least 2 people, okay? All right. This is now a Black Lives Matter protest. What do we want? Justice. What do we want it? No justice. No justice. No racist. No racist. If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it. If we don't get it, if we don't get it, shut it. If we don't get it, if we don't get it, if we don't get it, if we don't get it. Turn it up, don't turn it down, we doing this for Mike Brown. Turn it up, don't turn it down, we doing this for Mike Brown. Turn it up, never turn it down, we doing this for Mike Brown. Turn it up. Don't turn it down, we doing this for Mike Brown. Now, one of the things I want to tell you about Walter Scott was that in the Post and Courier, before we had the video footage, you know, they came out with the same old story. Trying to say, you know, Michael Slager felt threatened and all this. It looked like it till we had that video footage showing you how the police consistently lies explicitly. It hasn't been talked about enough. You know, so we got this indictment today for Michael Slager, but that's not enough. You know, that's just the beginning. In fact, we're actually in a situation where when we get an indictment, we almost have to treat that like that's justice. But that's not justice. That's just the beginning of a democratic process that should have happened. And we almost don't get almost any convictions from this kind of thing. So that's unacceptable, right? Right. Justice.
Justice. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Yeah, get another interview. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. What do we want?
Justice.
What do we?
Now. tell you something else. When those police in Ferguson started to tear gas us, people in Palestine sent information to the Ferguson protesters and said, here's how you deal with tear gas, and we're in solidarity with you. We got to pay more respect back to the people in Palestine and show people how these struggles are linked, right? What do we want? Justice. What do we want it? Now. All right. How did that feel?
Great.
What was it difficult? You were nervous about approaching people? No. You got it? Mm-hmm. Got on Smash? Okay, cool. All right, everybody, does anybody else want to practice that? Are you going to have a seat? You're good? Okay, cool. You get it out there. We got one viewer. Let me see what the... Okay, I'm going to go off for a minute. All right. So, Leaf, could I get you to say how you talk, what you think about when approaching a person for an interview or live streaming?
Well, it's a little bit different, obviously, because for CUTV, it was a full journalistic technical setup. So it was always a team of a minimum of 5 people walking together, dressed in, with T-shirts that say CUTV. One of them even had a flagpole with a CUTV, so the police can't even make an excuse that they didn't see us when they shot us with a tear gas directly, and which they were doing anyways, And at one point, first off, it was very clear and identified for the participants in the demonstration who we are and what we are doing. In the beginning, people didn't know us, but by the end of the first couple of weeks, people would chant when we walk into the demonstration. People would be like kind of opening up like the flood and Moses, and they were like screaming, "CUTV, CU." It was very it was totally different, I think. The other thing is that I would say that we changed our tactic or how we deliver even our messaging. So in the beginning, when people were still nervous about participating in being interviewed on CUTV, there was much more opinion coming from the journalists to fill the airtime, right? Everybody had, the minimum was that they have to repeat every 5 or 10 minutes where they are, why are they there, what happened up to then, and, inviting people to join. Okay, so this is the minimum that the repetitive things that were done. Yeah, every 5 to 10 minutes, because you have a new audience coming in. They don't know what the hell you are. And actually, it helped a lot because people started coming to watch CUTV, so they'd know where the demonstration is, so they can go join it. That's one thing. And the way we interview people changed, again, depending on the intensity of criminalization that was happening. So in the beginning, it was hard to interview people. Then it was very easy. Everybody wanted to be interviewed and on camera, no questions asked. But then when it was made illegal to demonstrate with Law 78 that was passed and then dropped after, but, it became illegal to demonstrate, period, without a permit from the government. So everybody just being interviewed on camera meant, yeah, that's what they all like to tell you. So we decided to, okay, right now we will not anymore interview people on camera except if they specifically say that they want to be interviewed on camera. And so the assistant to the journalists would go and line up the interviews and ask people, do you want to be on camera, and give them that ability. And and then if they didn't want to be on camera, so we'd interview them with the camera pointed somewhere else. And so you still had their voice and their story and their opinion and but without their face, so they couldn't be criminalized.
Absolutely. So I think what my takeaway from that is, if you're doing citizen journalism, right? If you have to make some choices about how your footage might affect the people that you're filming, right? My default is I'm putting people on camera, but, so one example where that came into play was, can you still hear me? I'm not sure. Is this mic? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Like one time where that came into play was at the KKK rally protest, basically there was about 200 KKK members there. There was about another 100 who were with the KKK, but they were also, but they just were like, had Confederate flags and they weren't sort of on stage, like behind the police blockade. Because I don't know if you could see in that video I played, the police essentially, so like say if this was the State House steps, about, 1,000 feet that way was like all the KKK members on the steps. The police created a blockade to make sure that no one could get to them. This was very interesting because the new Black Panthers, about 2 hours earlier, on the other side of the State House, had also had a protest, which they planned in response to the KKK thing, but it happened early. And for the new Black Panthers, which is not necessarily an organization that I, sort of endorse, but they had no police protection. Like you could walk right up to them. So it was so what happened is that community members who were not necessarily really very radicalized at that point, when they saw that disparity in police protection, it kind of made them. And then at certain, as the crowd grew, right now, eventually there was probably about 1,000 to 1,500 people there, and they were like all anti the KKK, and there was about 200 KKK. It was like people, as the police really took a more active role protecting them, then it really seemed like you're protecting the Klan, right? And the truth is, a lot of people were there. I mean, let's just say it was mostly a peaceful protest. I mean, I kept saying, look, it's a peaceful protest, because I wanted to highlight the fact that it's a peaceful protest to create a context to see how the police handle that use of force. But the truth is that, and I got, there were some people there who wanted to fuck the Klan up. I mean, it was like, it was serious. And so the threat, in fact, at one point, and this is captured in my stream, at one point somebody knocked my phone out of my hand because they just punched a Klan member, across the face of the, like the police was here and they just like reached, bang, and punched the guy. And it was this guy dropped my camera. Oh, exciting footage for sure. Good TV. But anyway, the point is that, okay, now, and then essentially as the police escorted the Klan to their cars, kind of, but in the process of doing that, they kind of like, the Klan got ahead, and so and then the people just kind of intermingled, and now it was kind of like chaos, right? And then people just started snatching Confederate flags and lighting them on fire and knocking people out. And it was, that was one time when I was like, and there was one moment, I was just going to tell you, there's one moment in the midst of that where there was a couple of different phases of this, but eventually the Klan started like driving out of this parking lot where they were in their cars, and it was still kind of like a little chaotic. And I was training someone at that time. I had a mentee who was working with me. She was doing radio. So we were like kind of getting everything. And then all of a sudden we just hear this like boom. And so she immediately runs toward the boom. And I was like, nope, no, we don't do, we don't run toward booms. I don't know if that's good journalism or bad, but I was like, I'm not, answering to your parents about what happened because you ran toward a boom. But what the boom proved to be was that when we finally did kind of get up to it, what it was that one of the Klan members had crashed into a tree on their way, in their rush to get out of the lot. So they were sitting there in the car with the car fuming. Very embarrassing for them. So that was interesting. My point, though, is that there was a moment where I'm like, see, this is a peaceful protest. This is a peaceful protest. But if you watch the tape, right at the moment when I say that, behind, somebody like knocked the Klan member out right behind that. So, at that moment you have to make a choice. Are you going to put that person on camera or not? You understand what I'm saying? Like you can get that footage, but what the consequences could be, you have to make that choice. You see what I'm saying? So that's the thing to think about. But yeah. Okay. So one thing we should talk about probably, do we want to take a break? It's hot in here. Do we need to take a break and am I getting any water or? I know we have till 3:45. Yeah. So I just want to make sure everybody's okay. We want to take a break. Okay. And can I actually put this down? I'm at a point where I'm ready to put this down. Also, let me stop there and ask, does anybody have any questions so far?
Do you use like a mic?
I don't, but when I have not done it when I'm doing it so far, not on my phone, but I'm not against doing that, yeah. Yeah, this would be a question for Leith. I've never done that, so I don't know. I mean, I know with GoPro cameras, you can do that. But with a regular DSL, I'm not sure.
Well, I've seen people. There's a different hookup that you can hook up your phone to whatever camera you're using, set up, and then you can
Use the camera's lens.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not.
Or there's another choice to it, which is you know those USB cards that you can get that are wireless. Basically, the same kind of setup on the camera directly. With something in between.
However, one thing I would tell you is, depending on the upload speeds and like what the limitations of the platform are, I'm not sure how much of a difference that's going to make.
Exactly. So this is where doing the research of CTV it was very clear. Like the problem is that
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry.
the problem was that is it working? Yeah. The problem was that the quality of HD footage, it's too much for the bandwidth for one SIM card. Okay, so what we were doing, after trying multiple solutions, because, this is the first option is that, okay? But then this is never going to be HD, never going to be even SD. It's never going to reach the standard definition even. Okay, so what does this mean? So we needed to find a solution, and that's where the only solution that we found that is ready, that you didn't have to build yourself, was this LiveView backpack. And it has 8 SIM cards. Okay, so it takes your footage of the HD camera. It's a full setup. You take whatever camera you have, even a DSLR or a 3CCD, like professional Panasonic, whatever it is, cameras that we were using, and goes into this computer in the backpack, and it splits your video into 8 different streams. Okay, and then at your servers that you've set up in your office, whatever it is, studios, it brings back everything, and from your servers, it sends it out to the internet, depend on whatever platform you want, and or broadcasting live on television if you had a license, so that's, really it doesn't make sense. If you're going to use just one SIM card, do not waste your time on a DSLR. Just use it with your phone.
So the reason I would use it is because of the lens, and you can get much closer to the action with a good zoom lens, but then you're saying the quality, like it's going to crash your phone?
No, the quality
is
it's going to be always pixelated.
So it will
Yes.
it will just degrade the quality.
Yeah, there's a maximum of how
Okay.
much the bandwidth can take on this.
Okay.
So it will.
But it won't crash anything or like...
No, it wouldn't crash anything.
Okay.
It just would be like you would be
Yes.
seeing it
And
on
the
your
zoom-
screen in HD, but what people are seeing is lower
and
than
the
standard.
zoom that might help. Like you might be able to get closer than you can get. For example, at that Klan rally, I could have got right up on their faces where I couldn't get closer because of the police. So you could do that, but I would also say the quality of cameras on the phones. This is what we got. You know what I mean? That's if you see, that's not bad quality. It's pixelated. Now again, I think the CUTV quality is better, preferable. But so yeah, you can make decisions about that.
There's even these new lenses that are made for
Yeah, they got
cell
yeah,
phones.
exactly. There's accessories you can add to the phone camera. Yes, absolutely that for sure.
Like, they just made a new phone, some probably new Samsung or maybe an LG, like super wide. Oh yeah, that.
Yeah. You didn't want to edit. So yeah, so that's one thing. Now let's see a couple other things I want to talk about. Let's talk about what happens to the video. I'm going to show you this, and then we'll talk about what happens to the video after you recorded it, and we'll come back to some shooting things, unless anyone has another question about that immediately that's pressing on your mind. Any other questions?
I guess I do have a question.
Yes.
So you're talking about being careful about who you're filming at a protest because you want to make sure. I guess the thing that you didn't say explicitly was just like if someone's doing something that might be considered illegal or held against them, the court of law, you want to be careful not to really get that on camera, especially not like who they, in an identifiable way. But there are also instances where getting something on camera is actually going to protect that person, right? Like say they're getting into something with a cop where the cop is doing most of the violence or the like all of the violence, then that's an instance where that could actually get them, like the example you were telling us about earlier. So how do you negotiate that? Like how do you know when something's happening, like if it's going to be good or bad to get it on camera?
And no, it is, and I'm gonna ask Leith about that, but I'll tell you from my experience. This is something I've had a fair amount of experience with in some of these protests. So the reason why I gave what I said was you have to make decisions about whether to show it or not. And I said it that way deliberately because sometimes the decision will be to film it, and other times it won't be. The reason why I gave the example with the Ku Klux Klan situation is because in a situation where you have a young man who's like maybe like a 16, 17-year-old person from Columbia, South Carolina, and he's like, essentially physically trolling a Klan member, right? And there's no police around. In that instance, I made the decision not to focus on that particular part of the action. In some cases. Now, I showed, there's some things I showed, like for example, later, when people had like taken the Confederate flag and made like, put it tied around their shoes and stuff like that, I showed that. I even showed some people burning the flag, but I didn't, choose to show the face of those people. Now, that's open to critique. Some people can say that's biased, etc. But there wasn't going to be an opportunity to catch police use of force there.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Now, in other situations where there is, where you see the police doing that, then definitely, well, that's definitely, but frequently in those cases, I'm going to be more aggressive to capture that whole scene. Now, and this is a really important role that I think that live streamers play, because I think you operate both as a deterrent and you operate as someone who actually is getting that archive footage. And this is also where your relationship with your viewers are important, because those viewers, like even in the situation where like your camera gets taken away from you or whatever particular kind of things happening, the viewers can do stuff with that footage because it's like if it's archived, on there, they can go find it. Or sometimes they'll tweet out, they'll like go off your stream and tweet, X, Y, and Z just happened. You know what I mean? Person just beaten, person just arrested, etc. And they can create a moment out of that. So that's the kind of thing. So I think it's definitely important to stay tuned for that and to watch, So I'm definitely, and when it comes to police, I'm sorry, but I don't ever exercise that rule when it comes to police. I mean, I put police on camera. I feel like their work is public and that's just the way it is. When they put on a uniform, they lose the right to not control.
What rule was that?
Huh?
What rule was that?
What rule?
Is there a rule against some police?
There's not any. I don't know what it is here.
No, it's legal here, just like in the U.S.
It's not. There's not a rule against it, but police will often try to tell you that you can't film.
Yeah.
So you should be prepared for that. Police will just tell you like, stop, put that down.
Knowing your rights probably the whole thing.
Yes. So you should know. You should know that you have the right to film, and you also should know that even if you don't have the legal right, you might still. I mean, if there's some contact on which for some reason they can say. I think the main thing that I understand the rights is that as long as you're not interfering with the action of the police, you're fine. They're going to make a case against you, but they say you're interfering with the police arrest or whatever they're doing. So as long as you're just kind of standing in a safe distance. And I mean, multiple times I've had police tell me, put the camera down, don't film that. And my choice is that I just ignore it. Now, the thing that you should know, and I'm glad you're bringing this up, is that we're talking about police who don't always adhere to the law. So it could be that like you might have the legal right to film them, but that might be something that you may have to prove after getting your ribs broken, after having gone to jail. So you have to make personal choices about how far you're willing to go, and you may want to think through that. Another thing I'll say with Sandra too, like I'm operating always in this weird space between scholar who's doing research, because I'm creating an archive, right? I'm a journalist who's broadcasting and creating an archive, and I'm essentially, at some level, I'm a participant in the protest, right? Because I'm another body there, an observer, a witness. Like, there was a moment I can see the stuff that you've gone through. I'm trying to think how to deal with that. I'll give you an example. I was during the mall protest. There were several times where police went to go arrest people or just grab them. Now, my impulse at that time is like, I got like conflicting impulses. One is, do I want to physically intervene to stop that from happening as part of the protest, right? Particularly like it's a big, muscle-bound, white cop and like a younger, woman. It's like, am I gonna? I mean, I know it'll be the same for everybody. I'm not trying to be misogynist, but I don't know. The instant comes out like, this is a really unbalanced situation here, and it's like, do I want to just, and I'm also thinking like, do I want to create a situation where if you can't arrest any of us, you have to arrest all of us? You see what I'm saying? Like that way it's better about it. Because really, as a protester, in a way, the power of numbers is that if everybody decides you have to arrest us and intervenes on that, they're less likely to do something, right? Because they don't want to have to arrest 80 people in the mall situation. But like now, whereas like if everybody stands back against your source, so I had to really make a decision. But then at the same time, I'm deciding, okay, so on one hand, I can intervene. On the other hand, I can capture this and show how this officer is not using his rights. And so it's tricky. Like there was one moment, for example, I saw where I was rescued from that decision because the National Lawyers Guild sends legal observers, and the legal observers come here. They have,
Yeah, we have our own.
Legal. Okay. So one time a legal observer was observing one of those interactions and just said straight up to the cop. Like typically they don't get involved, but this cop said to the cop, "Seriously, he had to have it." You know what I mean? He was like, "Are you going to do that?" And then the cop was like, got backed off, and I was like, "Okay." So I didn't have to make that choice. So I think those moments are, again, all these things are going to come down to your choice. I mean, for me, I'm going to try to capture those interactions with the police and people very closely. That's my thing. But I'm also aware that in many cases, I haven't been arrested for that yet or beaten or anything like that, but it's legal to tell you that it does happen. And it also may depend. I mean, one thing I would say is pay attention to. You may want to pay attention to the culture of police in a particular place where you are. New York police, for example, New York City, although the NYPD is a deeply corrupt institution, but places like New York and Chicago, police are used to protests, and so they're not going to just go for the bait right away. Like they understand how to kind of hang back, and like they have a band like SWAT in it. They're going to pull out when necessary. Ferguson is like a remote area in the Midwest, a suburb of St. Louis, where they felt like they just were not used to any scrutiny or surveillance. And it took them a very long time, even after the National Guard was there, because the entitlement was just there. You can't, even when you had the National Guard there and everything else, that sense of entitlement that they had for years, the sense of control over these people, was like, it's still there. So they just still were like intimidated. So that's the thing that, and some of the protesters all knew that, because they were like, listen, if we go into X mall, I'm going to be doing now, like the South County Mall police don't play games. So these are things for you to think about, like what are my limits? And generally, I mean, as I'm sure you all experience in protest, generally I've seen protesters are understanding of the fact that everybody has different limits. Like not everybody will get arrested and beat up. And so you just have to know what yours are. And I think if you know and have thought about that, you'll be better at capturing it because you won't hesitate. You know what you're going to do. So yeah, those are good questions on that. Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thanks. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really important. What else? Any other questions before we go to the next thing? Oh, let me just say this. No, please, go ahead. Oh, yeah, because I didn't ask your answer to that question as a person. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, obviously, we give directions to our crews that when you see the protesters beginning to do something illegal, any protester, whatever, just move on and film something else. Because not only because we don't want to, emphasize that or so on, but because the mainstream media is going to do it anyways. Okay, so there's no need for you to do it, number one. There's somebody else who's going to do it. Number two is our objective was to, if the police and the state and the mainstream media are there as a surveillance tool over the citizenry, then we are supposed to be a counter-surveillance tool. Okay, and the priority if the priority of filming the use of force would be on how the police implement the use of force, not how the protesters use the force. Okay, so those clear priorities. It changed how some of the journalists that came to us and volunteers were, they probably were used to the riot porn kind of situation where everybody's filming these huge confrontations. The other thing is that we did intervene at some times, okay, with the police, and it is very precarious. And not everybody has that. And you shouldn't expect it from everybody. But I got myself in trouble multiple times, and the first time was, when I got arrested, the first month of the demonstration, the police were following this demonstration of 17-year-olds, okay, and 16-year-olds. This is the age for CEGEP college in Quebec, because we only have 11th grade, and then 2 years of college before university, and 3 years of university instead of 4. Quebec is different than the rest of Canada and the US. Anyway, so all these CEGEP college students, 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're walking, doing nothing illegal, and they make a mistake of going down a street that doesn't have much traffic and so on, and then they get cornered and kettled by the riot cops. Right. And now, so I'm filming this. I run after I'm behind the cop line. So I'm running after them. They're kettling, every 10 of these students, kettling them in small groups and beating the shit out of them inside these circles. Now they're still not used to CUTV at that point, and I'm right behind this circle and I'm filming them beating the shit out of them.
With a big camera.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
Oh, this is one of the models that we were using.
Right.
Okay, so here's the cops. They turn around and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And they start jamming me and pushing me, and they push me back like a block away almost.
Wow.
And then they start arresting me.
Wow.
Now I'm on TV. I'm live on thing, and I'm going, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, right.
This is like and my crew takes the backpack and the camera and continue filming me being arrested. Okay, now they charged me with obstructing the work of a police officer. They take me to jail. I'm 6 hours in jail, waiting, and then they charge me with obstructing. And by the time we go to court, 8-9 months later, they drop the charge to loitering. So apparently, I didn't move fast enough off the sidewalk. I was standing too long on the sidewalk, so it was a ticket, municipal ticket, not a criminal charge. So I had a choice. What am I gonna contest the ticket for $50?
Why are you being a terrorist?
Yeah. So I was like, whatever. I mean,
Right.
I left it and I paid the $50
Yeah.
at least. So, but it was clear that they couldn't
Charge you actually with obstruction of justice.
Yes, because
it's
looked
filmed
ridiculous.
and it's on camera.
It's on camera. It's filmed, and there was a second guy behind me with a camera DSLR, and they filmed it, and he put it up right as I was arrested. So it's a second camera showing the whole thing from behind. So that setup that we saw in the area.
Oh, nice. So you had multiple. Right.
Multiple angles. It was too ridiculous for them. But I give you another example of how we intervened, and actually it was effective sometimes. So, for instance, another demonstration, they were coming down a street like this. The cops kettle people in ways that it was very clear that at any moment there could be a stampede. Mm-hmm. And there could be people dead. Not because of anything, but the cops hitting somebody pushing somebody, stampeding
You're just
over.
going to move this crowd and create panic. Right.
It was, so I come live on television and we're telling them, what you're doing right now, and we're discussing this with the cops, is going to cause you a stampede. And then you're going to be responsible for, there's a lot of elder people that were, and young people and so on, for the lives of these people and their health. And so the response was pepper spray right in the eye, live on television. But then within a few minutes, they actually had no choice but to let go. Because they had been warned live on television that their action is going to cause bodily harm and, endanger people's lives. And now they couldn't anymore. A third time that this was crazy. One night, we got attacked 4 times in one night. Okay, and they broke the camera's lens and everything, and I still was broadcasting. And they cornered me and the crew and beat the shit out of us in one alley, live on television. I was like 2 blocks away from the demonstration. okay?
What is up with the cops here, man?
In Montreal, it was crazy. In Montreal, but then by that, and they purposefully separated me,
television.
put a line between me and my journalists. So now I couldn't anymore receive reception from their microphones. I go into the.
That was intentional.
Intentional. So I go into the internal camera and I'm trying microphone. And I'm trying to find them, and I didn't know by this point, but they've already broken my ribs. But the adrenaline was so high, I didn't feel it, and I was like going crazy. So I'm looking for my crew, and by chance, I find the commander of the operations sitting with his pickup truck 2 blocks away from the demonstration and giving his orders by himself. Okay, the lieutenant. So I'm live. I'm like, "Are you in charge tonight?" And he's like, "Yes."
With a broken rib.
Yeah, and I'm not feeling it. And I'm like, "Are you in charge? Did you give them the orders to attack us 4 times and to do this to us, your cops?" And he freaks out. And he's like, "If you don't move right now," and he's alone, "I will get you charged with inciting a riot." And I'm like, so now questioning police on television is inciting a riot. Thank you very much. And I walk off. But, all those situations, it's very clear that it affects the behavior of the police. I mean, by the end of the 6 months, every cop in Montreal knows my name. They knew me. They were like, "Mr. Maroof."
When they see you coming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so there was no, when they pepper sprayed or attacked, it was very clear it was intentional because they knew it by name, they knew the crew, they knew everything.
Powerful. Powerful, man. I mean, and I just have to let a moment pass to honor what he just said, because that's like a major thing. I don't want to step on that.
Can I ask a follow-up question to you?
Please.
So when you were watching the CJEP students and filming them, did that help them ultimately in any kind of case against the police, or probably they were charged with resisting arrest, which is typical what they do when they have injured you?
Tens of people use the footage of CUTV in their court cases.
Yeah.
Okay, including the guys that lost their eye, all of those. So it was a clear counter surveillance tool used by the protesters to prove their innocence in courts. At one point, you mentioned accreditation. I think somebody mentioned accreditation before, and CUTV in Canada, there's the professional unions for or guilds for journalists and so forth, and then there's the Association for Independent Journalists that are not, and none of the associations accepted CUTV. Okay, and in fact, the Independent Journalist Association went out of their way to tell the media that CUTV are not journalists and they will refuse us. Okay, so you could tell how much threatening this was to the whole establishment of journalism. But even with all of this, the police, when they were having their press conferences in the head quarters of the police of Quebec and so on, we went one day to be like, okay, well, the mainstream media is going to live broadcast your press conference. We're going to do that too. So we get there, and the police send their sergeant. They're refusing to let us in. They're like, "Where's your accreditation?" And I'm like, well, you know what? In Canada, you're not obliged. There is no actual union for journalists. There is no guild that is the government, enforced. Okay, so you can. So I was like, no, I don't need to. He's like, no, you need a membership. I'm like, no, I don't need to. And we turn on the camera. I'm like, we're live right now outside the police head offices, and they're refusing to let us into their press conference. And immediately they let us in. So we were accredited without accreditation.
Credential. That was your credential.
That's
on.
it.
Camera on.
Boom. It's done. De facto. De
Right.
facto.
De facto.
Yeah.
And I will say, in relation to that, one thing I will say is, and actually, I came up with, there's 3 more things I want to do. And one of us, I want us to have a role play about this, because it is, I want us to feel a little bit about what that's like to make that decision. But one thing I've seen a lot of journalists do, and I've done this, is not to intervene, but to ask questions about what's going on. And definitely the live streamers are very demonstrative about performing the fact that live streaming. I mean, obviously there's like clandestine ways to do it, which is a choice too. If you suspect that this officer is doing something that he's not going to do, you realize that there's ways of slipping on. You know what I'm saying? But like, often there's also a performance thing where you're like letting them know you're filming. And by the way, just to throw out a little theoretical thing, for those of you looking at the panopticon, you know, the thing about the performance of surveillance is that it actually doesn't even matter if your camera's on or not, if you need to use it to protect people, right? Because the police have to assume that it's on in different ways. So that's important because sometimes, you know, you might, you know, it could be a situation where you're not filming, but you hold the camera, they have to assume it's on. So it's interesting to think about how it works in that way when the police and that kind of stuff. But definitely, and you know, John Ziegler, Rebel Z, I mean, one of the ways he built his name among, just from other than live streaming consistently for a long time, was he captured a officer basically telling himself and a group of other mainstream journalists, go fuck yourself. But his footage is the one that caught that on there. So he sent that out, and his people went crazy with that. And they nicknamed that officer, Officer Go Fuck Yourself. And so if you Google that, Officer Go Fuck Yourself, you'll see it's the thing that the guy around getting fired. So he was, you know, he was proud of that as an accomplishment. So those kinds of things are real. He's very demonstrative of everything. I mean, there's officers there. You put that face right on the camera, and like, you know, hey, Officer Davidson, you know, badge number so and so. Why are you arresting this person? I just want to know what's the thing. They're like, I don't have to answer that. Okay, you don't have to answer that. You know, just those kinds of things. Now that's like that's like a line of I'm intervening, but it's really just trying to capture what's going on. Well, let me say something that's also important. Oftentimes in these protests when people are arrested, people feel like they're being taken into it. Like it's like, you know, it's easy once people are arrested for them to disappear and you don't know who's been arrested. So that's an important role that you play as a live streamer, protecting people. Try to get people's names sometimes. Sometimes people, and not everybody wants it, but sometimes I'll ask people, like, yo, what's your name? What's your name? Is, you know, anybody want us to any information? Like that's a chance for them to get that out there. And even if people aren't watching at that moment, it's archived, it's there online, and people can do it. So documenting who all has been arrested is a key thing. You know, so that you know they set up the bail funds and all that kind of stuff. And you can also, you know, have an archive to know you have another, you know, angle on the count of like, okay, this protest, this number of people was arrested, the names, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of power in having that camera on and being able to, you know, ask those questions. So, and so I have definitely intervened in that regard. But again, I'm telling you all, you know, these are choices that you make, assessing the situation, and whether or not it makes sense. Why don't we do a little role play? And this is a little sensitive too. I don't want to make light of it, but I do want us to do it. So can I get us to stand up one more time? And, I guess you go this side. I'm just going to put my camera on.
Okay.
Just pretend it's not you, all right? Yeah, you hold it this way. You're watching the camera, right?
That's what, okay, so I have a question before we
Yes.
get started. So you were saying you do this when you're walking behind?
What I was
How do you
saying.
see what you're
Yeah,
filming?
can you flip that screen when you're in live view or in live stream? Can you hear me?
You know what?
It's awkward, so I'm just like, I'm trying to
I don't
picture.
think you can.
So if you're like this, and
Hold on, I'll show you. Yeah, you're not really.
This one
this way,
But your phone is old enough that the front camera is better than the back camera.
it is.
These ones are
So
just
you don't necessarily see the. You see what I'm saying?
So you can't see it? in
His
this-
phone doesn't have
Yeah.
a second camera in the front.
So
It
how do
does,
you know
but
you're
it's
not
lower
in
It
the
does,
quality.
but it does, but when I'm live streaming, I can't use it.
Ah,
It's not in Ustream.
Yeah, yeah.
How
Not
do you know
on
you're not filming in the sky?
Because I think you get a feel.
You get a feel for it?
Yeah.
You do it a few times and you're like, oh, I have a lot of good hairstyles and not much else in it.
I mean, if you got like 20,000 people
Oh,
doing
okay,
the camera like
that's
this, here, see, try to get a feel for it.
So you
Right.
go down this way?
Yeah.
Or do you?
Well, okay, now you're getting what's in front of you. You're getting what's in front of you now. Now you're getting what's in front of you. Turn
Oh,
it
because
around.
it's the turn camera now.
Oh, it's back there.
See, if you're live streaming, it's probably going to be the camera's facing that. So now let's walk. Let's walk this because we're going to do this anyway.
Facing behind me now. Yes.
Yeah, the camera's facing behind you, and we're marching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you might get a shot like that, you know, and then you can turn it back around. Turn it around.
And I can see.
Now you'll see what's in front of you. You see what I'm saying? So,
Okay.
You can play around like that. You know what I mean? You will. It takes just, it takes, yeah, you will see. So, but all right. Let's suppose we're at a protest, and okay, so you're.
You can get naked to do it.
Okay, that's
You're
fine.
still holding a camera, so it'll be useful.
Okay. So you went through a traumatic experience. I'm gonna get you out of this.
All right.
Please, you need to relive that, my brother. All right. Now, let's suppose you want to be. Would you like to be the police officer or the protester? Protester. Okay. So I'm not going to. I'm asking your permission. I may reach to grab your arm. But I'll be very gentle. Okay. Permission. Okay. Now, all right. So we're protesting. What do we want?
Justice.
Okay, hold on. Now, Nick, I'm gonna want you to make a decision about how you're gonna handle this. We'll do a couple of different ways. All right. Okay. So go ahead, protest.
What do we
I'm
want?
an officer. Yeah.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? Justice.
All right. Time for you all to clear out of here. Okay. This is no longer a legal assembly, so time for you all to clear out.
Okay.
We're not clearing out. It's our right.
This is all right.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if you all had a permit to be here, and the problem is right now we're getting complaints that you're
There's no
obstructing
permit
traffic.
needed for this thing.
Okay. I tell you what. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to clear out. You're going to have to leave.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that you're obstructing the flow of business here in this area.
What is the flow of business that I'm obstructing?
Okay. No, let's go. Let's get that.
Don't touch me.
Why are you getting uppity?
Let's go.
Okay, we're going.
Yeah, let's go. Come on.
Yeah, you can get it.
What's your name?
Not resisting you.
What's your name? Do you want to say your name to the camera?
Yes.
You know what? Stop that. Get out of here, buddy. Okay, get out of here right now. Seriously. Okay?
Do you want to tell your name
Yep.
to the camera?
Let's go.
So-
My name is Sammy Pritchard.
Let's go.
Is there anyone you want us to contact?
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
So that was one way of handling.
So is that weird if I jump in and he's not saying anything, that I would just jump in?
No, you're fine.
Yeah, you are another
Another
participant.
participant.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
People,
yeah, exactly. There you go.
say what they need to.
Now, but yeah, you saw how now. There's maybe I don't know. Is there a bad way to do that, or like you know what I mean?
Well, the only bad way to do it is to get in between them.
That's what I was going to say. I can't demonstrate because I'm the cop, but there's a way in which you can like really try to obstruct him.
So I can get in.
You got it between trying to get me
Do you
up.
touch the officer, touch me, I'm the officer, you grab it, stop, you know what I mean? You can do that. I mean,
I have tried that.
now,
So you're trying to cop car.
what was your thinking and how you strategically dealt with it?
Trying to get close to the audio and get everything in. Audio and
All right, let's try the same thing again, but now this time I want you to intervene a little bit more. I want you to ask me some questions. All right? All right, so, all right.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Whose street?
Our street.
Whose street?
Our street.
Yeah. Okay, roger that. Okay, copy that. All right, yes.
Streets.
Hi, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna need y'all to just move over to this side.
Why?
What crime is being committed, sir?
No, there's no crime, it's fine. I just need you to move over here.
Well,
Move
why
over
are
to this
they
side.
having
Why?
committed them?
Well, this is not an authorized zone for this kind of, activity. If you want to put, I don't have any problem with your.
What about our constitutional right to assembly?
Just need to
Right
be over here.
to free assembly here, so we'll just.
Yeah, listen, buddy, you're now interfering, and I need you to move. Okay, you're interfering with an arrest. You need to move. Okay,
Why am I being arrested?
You don't have to be arrested if you move. I don't want to arrest you
What is the law that says that I need to move from this spot?
because I'm a police officer and I said so. That's the law. I'm the law.
Is she
Okay,
being detained?
you're both going to be detained if you don't get out of here and stop interfering with this arrest. Okay, it's time. She's getting ready
Being
to.
taken right now.
All right.
Oh, boo! Police!
Buddy, you're
Fuck the
you're
police!
my way. Call back up. He's blocking your way. Okay.
That's nothing.
So very.
You missed that.
Everybody have a feel for.
We also now know how to handle it.
I think I was gonna add earlier.
Yeah, you were nice. That was worse.
Yeah, that was.
He was definitely not a Ferguson cop.
No.
Yeah, no. So, okay, a couple of things before we wrap up. One thing I want to deal with is what happened. Saving the video is very important. So, Actually, everyone go to into Ustream. This is important enough that we're actually going to make a video. If you still have the title of your video up, call it save. Just call it save test or something like that. Maybe erase it, right?
Where are we doing
Go
that?
live. Go live again. Did you go live?
I don't know what I mean. No, this probably shut off
Oh.
the dashboard.
Yeah, go live. Okay, see this is go live? Click that.
No.
Are you live? You can actually go live. Hit the red button. Everybody's on. You're on? You're
On
live.
your iPhone, we can switch.
You can switch cameras?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Perfect. So see, then it's even better. iPhone versus Samsung. Okay, are you live?
Yep.
Sandra? Okay, cool. All right, so in mine, I don't know what this looks like for the iPhone people. Mine, when I hit the red button here,
Oh yeah, it's playing there.
oh, ads. You must be indoctrinated with the ads for the day, folks. Very important. Oh, because I got the camera on. So.
Did you monetize your channel?
No. Ustream does that unless you want to pay $99 a month subscription. We got to talk about that.
Oh, so they put ads automatically?
Yes.
Ads in, which will be
Interrupt your broadcast.
Oh.
That's brutal.
You wouldn't know about it, but the viewers
You
will
won't
know
see
about
it,
it.
but yeah, they'll instead of watching it in the moment, they'll be
But
monetized.
then, does it, can you watch like the part that was missed?
Yes, later on. It's not like on the
But
archive.
you won't see, but when you download the flash file of it, the ads won't be, yeah, they won't be the same ads. The ads are only live, you know what I'm saying? So they won't be in the broadcast. Okay. So you see the red button here? When you click this red button, to me, sometimes if I have like a really interesting live stream, like a feed, I'm like, my heart is pounding. I'm like, okay, let's say it's been like 45 minutes, I've recorded some stuff, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I save that. Or maybe it's been 35 minutes, but I just saw them bring somebody's reel. Like, I want to make sure I have this. See what I'm saying? So I'm going to hit the red button here. And you see the save comes up. And then if you want, you can, this time that I'm like, I'm so worried about getting the footage and how I'm going to rename it. I'm just like, no, I just got to hit save. And then hit save and then back. See that? Did you do it?
I didn't, but I'm watching.
You watching? Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Mine, I don't know where that is.
Oh, because you didn't start broadcasting it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's no red button for you. It's just now stop broadcast, and it's gonna ask you to save, no?
Start record.
Stop record.
Save video.
Oh, save video, yeah. But it didn't give her that option when she did broadcast.
Broadcast, yeah. It's interesting from the computer.
Yeah.
So, okay, so did you save? You saw this? Now, you also see that when you,
Where is it? I don't know where it's going now.
It's in a loop now.
Mute.
all right, now here's the thing.
Off.
When you hit, sorry for being so phone centric here.
No, it's fine. It's
All right.
stupid. I wouldn't be live streaming with my laptop.
Here's the thing, but you might have
An event like here.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay.
The share, after you can say it gives you an option to share immediately, so that's another option you get, which again, can be very useful.
Immediate release?
No, like,
Immediately.
Like it'll share
Oh, right.
immediately, like it'll share to Twitter and Facebook right then,
Which
which can be
immediately I heard immediate release.
which can be useful if you want to just like go immediately right back to the stream. Unless suppose you're in the middle of the action and you want to let people know, you can like save, click quickly, share the link, and then bang, you hit record it, and you're right back in there to catch the next thing that's happening. You know what I'm saying? But also, a lot of times when you archive, the way I always thought, like, after you archive, you might want to go to the bathroom, and somebody sit down, you rest, and then we'll go back for another 45 minutes.
And is there some way of just saying going offline for 10 minutes or 20 minutes?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Thank you. I'm sorry. I announce that to my viewers. I tell them, listen, I'm about to go down for a couple of minutes. If I know I'm going to be back up, I'll be back up. If I'm not, I'm just going to go. Then thank you, thank you for watching. So yeah, I make an announcement to you. Very cool. One other thing, two other quick things I want to show you. There's a variety of editing options, and Ustream to me doesn't have like the most intuitive navigation thing here, but basically when you click into Ustream, if you go here, they have like this area where there's like videos. It's all your videos there. If you click here, down to, you click this arrow here on the page, you have an edit thing, you know what I'm saying? So you can edit, you can retitle it, you can get this annoying advertisement off of it. And then you can decide if you want to publish it or leave it unpublished. Which, you know, you can, there's a separate thing if you want to be able to trim it. So if you want to trim the video, like in length, and make it like only a certain amount of trim off in the beginning, you can kind of go on here and do that. Here's the thing. Here's where Ustream gets you, in addition to the ads. If you download it, there's also a download. Okay, so here's the download, right? It's going to give you a flash file right off the gate. See, it's downloading the flash file. That is like what they give you. The way you can convert that flash file into a MP4 using some type of converter. It's not very complicated, but you do need a converter. If you have the subscription, they give you all these options like immediate MP4, YouTube, but again, $99 a month. So, you know. Now, with Facebook video, this is one thing about using Facebook's streaming thing, is that they immediately give you a download thing, and I believe it downloads directly to MP4 from Facebook. But it's Facebook with its own drawbacks and pros and cons, which we can talk about in a moment, but I'm kind of centering it around Ustream for that. So that's what you can do with your streams. Also, really, one other thing I'll show you, one other feature that's really important is you can go in here and manage highlights. When you manage highlight of the video, okay, sorry. When you, oh yeah, okay. When you manage highlights, see if they can create highlights. Okay. So when you manage highlight of the video,
Add a new highlight right there.
add a new highlight, and then it lets you choose like a section of it. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you a link that goes right to that section. So you have one link that goes to the video if you click the main video on your list, and you can also have a link that goes right to that part of the video where the thing's happening. Very helpful when you have a 45-hour-and-a-half long thing to go right to the point where the cops are acting up. You know what I mean? You can also create the opportunity for the viewers to go in and make those highlights, and then they can distribute their own links if you want. You know what I mean? So those are all important features, and you can, you know, I think they're fairly intuitive. It's just to me, like, without the subscription, and this is why we need better platforms, right? Like, it's a pain in the ass to download the flash, convert the flash, upload back to YouTube, or share it on your thing, you know. But if you get used to doing it, it's not that much work. But you know. All right. Two other quick things. And as far as equipment, one thing is I would say battery power is crucial. Obviously, streaming takes a lot of data, and it takes a lot of battery power. This new Trent battery is what I use, but of course, Lee probably knows all kind of other crazy options. This is actually kind of old, probably, but like this battery could probably keep my phone streaming, like working for maybe like over 24 hours straight. It has like 3 charge periods, and it's also got 2 things. So this time I'm like charging another phone, running my phone off this battery. It's like, you know, so this is very useful, like a crucial element to have. In fact, like when I was taught to stream, this was the first thing I was told to buy. This cost about $30. So the stream is important. The battery life is important. It's also important to think. You gotta start thinking. Like last night, for example, before I went to bed, one of the things that started happening when you stream is I was like, okay, let me make sure everything is charged. The battery's charged, because I need to hear it. You know what I mean? The phone is charged. My radio stuff is charged. And life becomes about thinking ahead about charging. You know, very important. And then charging up the battery. This takes 9 hours or something to charge. So you see what I'm saying? So So this is battery as creep. Another thing to think about is lighting. Like you said, there's accessories. One of the accessories that you want, there's various kinds of lighting options that you might want to choose. There was two I had. One was, I just had like a big sort of LED bright light that like I could attach to the phone. No, I had one that was like a standalone thing. I just put two AA batteries and I could hold it and run it like Best Buy or something, and it was like a bright light. That was useful. But there's also lights that I could plug right into the top of the phone. The phone has their own little flashlight in there, which you can turn on inside of Livestream, but it's just not going to be enough at night. So lighting really helps the quality of the video and everything. People do shoot video, so there's like these little accessories you can plug it into your headphone jack, and it's like boom, it gives you a nice bright light. So you want to think about that. Also, you want to think about, in terms of equipment, and this is kind of the final thing, you want to think about weather. That's like obvious maybe, but for example, some places, it can be very warm around like 4 or 5 p.m. and then by 7 or 8 p.m. it can be very cold. Or if it's going to rain and stuff like that. So you want to think about how being able to move through those transitions. Weather was crucial. I mean, again, if Circus and we were in November, it was like brutally cold, winter cold type thing. So you really had to like have layers on, and you had to think about it. And then at the same time, when we were there in August, it was like brutally scorching hot. You had to go through. I was like, if I was going to be out there for a while, I had to go through multiple changes of t-shirts. So think about clothing, and then in that regard, this is why it's not uncommon to see people who are streaming to have a backpack with all the things you need: water, clothes, changes of clothes. Like these are all things you want to think through ahead if you know you're going to be really doing a streaming action, or if you know you might want to stream. After you've done it a couple of times, it kind of does become second nature. You just kind of know what to throw in your bag, like throw your battery in, throw this and that, and then you're ready in case you want to do it. But definitely think about that, because you don't want to. Because what you don't want to do is be like in the middle of a really crucial process. You're getting all kinds of important footage. Maybe you're one of the only streamers there, but you're like freezing, kind of thing, or something like that, and you don't have the stuff that you need, because then you realize at that moment. What's so fascinating to me is like one of these areas, this is from a research standpoint, how sometimes your ability to operate as a media person with all the technology, it doesn't come down to the technology. It comes down to like, you didn't go to the bathroom. It comes down to like, you didn't have the clothes. You know what I mean? Like, I had the technology, I had the iPhone, phone, the light, but it was like, no, I was hungry as hell when I was about to pass out. I didn't have a candy bar. So it's like those sort of basic taking care of yourself things are important, I think, to think about. And then you can go for a long time and just concentrate on being a really dope journalist and getting footage that's going to help us to carry the revolution forward. So. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I was going to say earlier, like I really like having a mic.
As a way to talk, yeah.
Yeah, like you can even just have like a loud mic, and like loud mics that are like a wire, and you can plug in your headphone jack, or like a full on like wireless. Because I don't know, like with intimidating cops or whatever, with like holding them to account, like you can put the mic right in their face, and then still have the camera, and then be able to hear like their whispers or their like radio calls. It just puts people a little more on spot.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely like
even as part of the performance, you're saying.
Yeah. But yeah, like I mean, it might also be something phallic about a mic, like that it's just like more intimidating. Like there was one time when there's also like astroturfers, right? So like media who were bad. Yeah. And then I think holding those guys to account and like forcibly interviewing them.
The media people.
Yeah, like media, like conservative media pundits that go to like protests and like try to get stuff out of context and just like, but to like they make people super uncomfortable on film. Like there's some people who do really badly that are like totally grassroots, and there's some people out of this actual like media outlet called Rebel Media. Right. But there's these two dudes that were pretty sure are police informants, and they're always like, they do things like film ceremony when they're asked not to, and then like when people yell at them, they like post it on the internet and just shake the ground, like film a camera shaking the ground and like say that there's violence in a protest. But being able to like put those guys on the spot and like interview them and like put a camera and a mic
and kind of turn their thing on right on them with the mic.
Yeah, and then be like, why do you lie about this? Like, why do you write people on the internet without the consent? Like, yada yada. I think, I did that to these two dudes. Two were outside of Occupied INAC, and then they put a tweet out saying that like I'm out of the building and embarrass myself, and then I don't have a video coming soon, but they never actually posted a video. You know, Rebel II?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great idea. I mean, I haven't had much experience with trolling other media. I'm not trolling, but critiquing and holding them accountable.
Yeah.
But like, I think I think that's a great idea, particularly when there are media who are, particularly if they're doing things that are really violating people's rights, like interrupting ceremony and stuff like that. I mean, it's a tricky thing, mind you. Too, keep in mind, I teach journalism, so like, I don't know if you saw what happened in Missouri, where you remember the big protest in Missouri, and Mizzou, and the football players joined, and there was like a student strike. I don't know if you heard about that this past year. But there was a big student protest, and it was like they called for the resignation of the president of the university, and the guy, a student, on a hunger strike, and then eventually the football players joined the protest, which is gigantic, and then eventually the president resigned. Right, and so that was major. But one of the things that happened was the headlines that got kind of taken over because the protesters had asked her to try to create kind of a safe space because they didn't like the way the media was treating them. And at a certain point, this ESPN journalist tried to break into the safe space. And the journalism professor, who I know is kind of a colleague of mine, Melissa Click, who holds a joint appointment in journalism, she basically told the, like you see in the video, she tells the guy, like, you can't come in here, like, this is a safe area. And he just was like, no, why can't I? And she's kind of like, and she's sort of like, she's kind of waving in the way that the process is like she's touching his camera, which was interpreted as pushing him.
Yeah.
And then she says, we need some muscle over here. And so it's a tricky thing because I saw this even in the context of our city. Like, there was mostly the local media was really, I felt very helpful in the context of our protest, but there was, like, one thing they did was they put these really horrible mugshots of all the students out. And so the students felt like, man, you put these mugshots out like that, now when I Google my name, this comes up. Like some of these students were like, they were running towns for being like people who were like, representing their towns, they just didn't like that. So they were like, when they saw the journalists who had done that, they were kind of like asking me, like, I don't feel like talking to that person. And then those journalists are kind of aggressively coming over to me. That's an interesting moment for me as a professor, right? So what I'm saying? And I was like, oh, this is the Melissa Click moment. Because part of me is like, no, you can't just, they feel like, but then I realized, like, wait a minute. So I gotta be like, okay, well, I'm like, you don't necessarily have to talk to them, but, like, I'm not going to, like, block the way of the journalists, And so you can see, like, even with this tactic you're talking about, I gotta be careful with how, because then, especially because one of the key things, I don't know how it is over here, but one of the key strategies that conservatives use is to try to claim that you're blocking freedom of speech and you're blocking freedom of the press. So that's something I'll be sensitive to, because in the case of Melissa Click, that backfired, and that became, like, if you Google Missouri in the protest, you're going to see a picture of her. And so it was really like, and she ultimately got fired.
Like the sound, the importance of sound, I cannot emphasize that, and not because only that I come from a background of radio before television, but because I remember, I'm not sure how you are, but I rarely go to a cinema.
Yeah.
I don't have cable or anything, so I actually, download everything hacked. Sometimes I even download movies that have been filmed in camera inside the cinema, right? I will watch, and this is what the consumer will watch. They will watch that camera, shitty camera, if the sound is good.
Yeah.
But they will, if the sound is crap and it's HD camera, they will not watch it. So this is one thing that's very important to remember. Like, even if you're not able to have the high quality of video streaming, then make sure that you have high quality audio. Part of it is all, collecting evidence and so on. But the other is another thing. The other is really
creating something that people will watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
One last thing I would say about sound and having a microphone and a full setup is that it gives its own aura, right? Like the demonstrators during the Quebec Spring recognized that this is a professional setup.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't mean that we're right-wing or professional, or, like ourselves, but the setup itself, the technical, it is you looked at it, there's a team coming, there's 5 people with a full camera and a backpack and a
Absolutely.
shoulder mount and equipment and clip and wireless this and wireless that and wires everywhere. They saw that as this is a different, stage than just citizen journalists. And the demonstrators were, they felt that kind of grandiose of being interviewed by this thing. So it plays in itself, and the police themselves also. Like this is more threatening to the cop to have a full camera in her face instead of a cell phone.
Than of a cell phone. Now, and I 100% agree. I mean, as somebody who makes radio, right? Like right in here, I have my radio equipment. I have my, and I would say, but I make a choice, right? I can't. There's times when I've tried to do both, but like I make a choice about whether or not I want to. Actually, I'm not sure if I do have it, but yeah, when you go with the radio, you have your headphones on and you have like a long Rode mic, and you come out, you look more official. But it's also, and so I think absolutely. But I would say there's also ways of being official as a person with a camera. I mean, obviously the little stick matters. The sound is important. I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody don't get a mic. I'm like, get as good sound as you can, get the equipment. But also, the sound that I've gotten from the live streams is pretty good. I mean, to the extent that like I've used it in radio, like stuff I captured, like I just peeled out the sound. So I'm amazed at like how good the sound is. And I'd say that as like I'm a hip hop artist producer, I could get real audio file on you, like it's not the same as like a full rich thing. But keep in mind, there's the limitations of what's going to get captured in the stream, and also, I mean, like I'm talking about, like I was in a church one time, and like in the back of the church with the acoustics and everything, and like I'm streaming the thing, you could hear that preacher's on this final stream, you could hear the preacher's voice like crystal clear. So I'm not saying don't get it. I'm saying yes, sound. And everything we're saying about being official is, I think, important. And the only thing I would say is 9 times out of 10, I think it works in your favor. But keep in mind, sometimes, in terms of being intrusive, there's a difference between where it could be like the smaller is a little bit better. But generally not. Generally, when it's smaller, people are scared because they feel like, who the hell is this? Or when you look official, I think you're right. They feel a security in that. Well, anyway, folks, thanks for listening as I bumbled my way through this training, and for the collaborative knowledge. Really great to have all of you here with everybody's experience, and great, definitely Leaf, to have you. I mean, I can't think of a better person to have in a workshop about this. So, yeah. And, one other thing is, I don't know if you all have my information, but if you start your stream, please do share that with me. I don't know if everybody's on Twitter, but I would encourage you, if you stream, get on Twitter, so that I can broadcast your streams and amplify it. I don't have a huge following. I got about, 2,500 people. Actually, I think I'm at 2,900 now. I've almost hit my coveted 3,000 followers on Twitter. But probably not. For me, like 5,000 probably. Not that many. Yeah, like at that time. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, if you look at my channel, you'll see there's like, I have something, it says like 42,000 views total. Yeah, but
I'm going to encourage us to continue this conversation.
Oh, okay, great, yeah.
Did you guys want to